Hi students, this lesson is going to be a short one. We're going to cover style sheets for your type system, how to integrate color into your book, and then working with master pages. So once you have your typographic system perfect, what we want to do is implement that system into our previous spreads that we've created and future spreads. And the goal is to be as consistent as possible. And there's a simple way to implement that system. If we go up under Window and go to Styles, what we're going to be working with is paragraph styles. And it should pop up a palette like this. And I want everybody to just drag and put that palette into with your other palettes. So now that we have our system established already, what we'll want to do is walk through and actually name our styles. So if I select my header type, what we'll do is we'll create a style for that. And we can just call it header or whatever you can remember. There's no specific required name for each style you make. It's just so you understand what you're calling it. I'll call this one my sub description, and then lastly I'll just call this one content. And so now what this does is the style I put in the header, which is Roboto medium at 14 point, if I double click the header here, it gives me all the same typographic styles. So the 14 point, the medium. And what this allows me to do is go to my other pages that have styles and everything in place and just click header, and it will set that style. And then I can double click on my text here, hit subdescription, and then on my content, hit content, and it'll set those styles that I've determined consistently on each page. So if I have an example that's just completely defaulted like this, again, you just click on it, you can hit header, you can click on it, hit subdescription, and then click on content. So it's a quick way to set styles consistently through your book. So here's the biggest reason why to use paragraph styles. Let's say our end book has 24 to 30 pages, and you decide, oh my goodness, like this header is just too small after I print it out on all my spreads. So if you don't have a header style set, you have to go through every single page and bump it up by 2 points. The reason why we use a style is if I double click the header, now make sure you don't have anything selected typographic, like any of the boxes selected. I go to basic character format, and if I make it larger here, and you can click preview if you want to see the difference, and I hit OK, it changes the size on every single page. So that's pretty much the main reason why you use paragraph styles. If you change your mind and realize that this leading in the content is too tight, you can double click this, come into the character, increase it, and it will increase it on every single page. It's also too is when you set that style, and let's say you use justified type, and in some of your previous examples you haven't left a line, it will justify the type for you. So that's paragraph styles. As a nutshell, as you get more into it, and if you develop more styles, I can show you some more techniques, but just ask for that on a one-on-one. So I'm going to go over a couple things with color. I'm going to show you a tool, And then 2 ways I want you to possibly experiment with it in your layouts. So under the eyedropper tool here, there is this color theme tool, which is a pretty incredible tool in InDesign, and I wish Adobe had it in Photoshop and Illustrator. So if I click on any of my projects, it will actually make a 5-color palette for you out of those projects. So I can then add that to my swatches. And then if I go to, it's kind of clunky, I got to kind of click back and forth to get it to reselect. If I click this project, for example, it will create another color palette generator, and I'll add that to my themes and swatches. So then if I go under swatches here, I have 2 color themes. So when you're working with color in your book, what I want you to do, similar to how we approach type, where we did a bunch of examples and we kind of came down to one final typographic solution that will work for all of our illustrations. I want you to think the same way about how you use color. And we have a lot of different color palettes probably within all of your projects. We want to try to create one universal palette that will work. So again, thinking about if you use really bright red in your main color theme final palette, that might not be the best choice. So what I would do is start to experiment, and you can kind of pull up ones you think will work and get rid of the ones you don't, and try to create a 5 color, not 6, not 10, just 5, something of neutrals or bright colors depending on what your overall color palettes are. So that being said, how I'd like you to look at working with color, we're going to start with the most simplest way, is using it as a field, so behind the work. And the easiest way to implement color with a piece is obviously just to use black with the work itself. So if you feel like the work is better on white, leave it on white. If you feel that's presented better on black, do that. A 50% gray isn't bad, but sometimes 50% grays kind of wash out the work, and sometimes they just don't print the best. So you're better to go with the contrast of white or the contrast of black. But we can definitely look at that, and you can persuade me otherwise. The other option is to actually use one of your color theme colors, and that can work as well. How I want you to think about color with type is definitely not to put a huge field of color behind the typography that you're working with. Even if I was to shift this out white, the legibility will be pretty tough to work with. So I would recommend always keeping your type on white and bringing color to the type so that it relates back to the illustration. And the easiest way to do that is to actually do it in your header and leave your body copy as a black, as a consistent throughout all your pages. So if you want to bring a little bit of color, do it in the header or in your subdescription. Kind of leave the body copy alone. So if I just simply select the gray here, you can see how that works kind of nicely with the illustration. So a master page, now the easiest way to explain this is if you have your pages palette open, and currently this is our book that we're working with, and each page is kind of custom to what we're designing. A master page contains universal elements that we use on every page, and a universal element's like a page number. So an easy way to add page numbers is to actually do it through a master page. The hard way is to go through every single page, put the little number in the corner, put the little number in the corner, and then set all the same typeface and put it together for the whole book. So there's a quick way to do that. If you go into the master page here, so you gotta, if you're in your pages here, just make sure you double click on the left or the right one, it doesn't matter. But you kind of see that we're in the master page mode. When we first set up our document, I put together a grid that's in the master page, and that actually is how you see it on every single page. So again, inside the master page itself, by double clicking, it also highlights here. And what we're going to do is we're going to insert page numbers. So the first thing we need to do is come in, and if we have our grid on, we can kind of see the left corner here of where we want to put the master number in. And I'm just going to select Roboto because that's what I have as my header typeface. I'm going to use bold, and right now I'm just going to set it at like 12-point type. And to insert that, you go under Type, Insert Special Character, Marker, Current Page Number. So right now it says an A. I just want to tuck it down in the corner here. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing on our other side here. So draw text box, make sure it's set to the previous typeface, so I have Roboto, not Roberto, bold, 12, and I'll do the same thing again. Go to Type, Insert Special Character. Oh, well, if that happens, that just means I gotta come back in here and make sure that the cursor is inside the box. Go under Type, Insert Special Character, Markers, Current Page Number. And I'll just drag it over here. And then when I double click back to my book, we have page numbers. So if you want to edit the location or the color, you come into the document, set it up perfectly, and then click back out. So again, just get used to going into the master page and then back to the major layouts that you've been creating. So that's how you implement page numbers into your document. Oh, one last thing. You can't select it. So if it's in the master page here, this object I can't select. So let's say, for example, you have it on black here and you really want to be able to see it. If I come down to that spread and I control click, I can override those page items, and then it should be in there. Yeah, and I can come in here and just switch, for this example, that type to white. Well, there. So the item just has to be behind it. So that's how you override a master. So in case you have a scenario where there's color, you can bring that number to the foreground. Our lesson has now come to an end. We covered style sheets for your type. This will help you make sure that all your typography is consistent throughout your entire book. How to use the color selection to create a universal color palette for your book, and how to implement solids behind your work and also color into your typography. And lastly, what a master page is and how to add page numbers to your book. Hope you enjoyed this short little lesson. I wish you happy designing.